Hey everyone, my name is Neil Karski, and I'm the CEO of Patient Engine, a seven-figure digital marketing, lead conversion, and coaching agency for high-ticket aesthetics providers. And I would like to personally welcome you to the Aesthetics Millionaires Show, where we sit down with industry entrepreneurs to talk about their personal journeys and discuss proven growth strategies. My genuine hope is that through this podcast, we can create more success stories in this industry and help more business owners scale past their competition. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, another special episode of Aesthetics Millionaires Show on YouTube and Spotify. I got one of the legends of this industry, Dr. Tiphany Hall. She's here with us today. She's got a lot of amazing stuff going on in her professional ventures. So wanted to catch up with her today and also learn a little bit more about her story because it's a very unique one, guys. So let's welcome Dr. Tiphany Hall, who is the owner and CEO. I mean, you have so many different companies. We got Aesthetic Record. We have the Med Spas. We have Aesthetic Next. What else am I missing?
We have a CRM company. We also have a marketplace, a GPO. We do malpractice insurance. We do a little bit of whatever a practice needs. We want to offer it to them through our system. So yeah, a lot of things, a lot going on.
Wow, it's amazing. All right, Dr. Tiphany Hall's here with us. Tiphany, how did you get into this industry of aesthetics? Bring us back a little bit to the early days of maybe when you weren't an entrepreneur and you decided that entrepreneurship was for you.
Well, I came to aesthetics via pharmaceutical sales, but before that, I had gone to college with the hopes of being a chemical engineer. That was my early desire. I always loved science and math and thought maybe med school or being an attorney, do patent law, something like that. So I went through all of that, went through college and decided halfway through that engineering was for the birds, not for me. So I got a business degree instead and just always loved the idea of like building small businesses. My dad's an entrepreneur. I grew up around small businesses and just thought, a chance to take what I've learned through like formal education, but also just being in the weeds since I was a little kid and taking that to other companies and helping them to grow and develop was a really fascinating thing for me. And so fresh out of my MBA, I started doing consulting work and worked with big companies like Walmart and Sam's Club and Tyson and JB Hunt. And just did a lot of really cool, like how to improve your business through your people, like talent management and just organizational development things, really focusing on like people as an asset and as a part of your process and part of your system, which at the time I didn't really understand would be part of like every company forever. That's what everybody needs is like their human capital is the hardest part of the business. And so from there I was just inspired to get a PhD and finish it up. And then at that point it's like, okay, you have a PhD, what do you do now? And I went into pharmaceutical sales because I thought, it's a cool place to really do a lot of the training that I've been doing with other companies and really get my hands into like a really fast growing industry. Because at that point, pharma was really in its heyday, like 2014, 2015. So I did that for a little bit and then decided at some point that I wanted to own CrossFit gyms, which I recommend that to no one ever. Don't do that to yourself. It's a terrible choice. But, we were doing our entrepreneurial thing.
Like a lifestyle business.
Man, it was rough, but we were big workout junkies and thought, we'll buy a few CrossFit gyms. No big deal. Really, really tough industry. But at the same time, I was really taking off with this pharmaceutical career. And like I was working for Alcon doing contact lenses and just really looking at, where do we grow as a society? And I think healthcare is always a big opportunity for us as a society. This is pre-AI boom, pre-tech boom, like everyone's building their own apps in their grandma's basement boom. And at that point, I went to work for Galderma, which is part of Nestle at the time. And aesthetics just really fit for me because it was a small business owner, a nurse who's just coming into the fold, trying to run a business, learn how to do things on her own. She doesn't have formal training in business, but she does in healthcare. And I just saw that there was a huge impact that we could make there as both a company with Galderma, but also as me as a person. And it was just a really cool experience to go into Arkansas, which was very underdeveloped for the aesthetics market. And to help these guys go from like, I'm thinking about being a nurse injector to now, multi-million-dollar practices and really be part of that whole journey. And so I was there for 5 years. I built the game program, which is like the Galderma Aesthetic Injector Network, all the training pieces and parts, and loved this idea that we could cultivate a business, not just financially and its revenue, but also with the actual like training and the hands-on and becoming a really great injector and patient outcomes being the forefront. And it kind of led me here to Aesthetic Record because I came into this role in 2019. And Justin had already built the software. So our CEO, Justin Harper, is a physician, has med spas as well, had already built the software and sort of at its core infancy. And then I came in 2019 and said, what is this little thing you're building? Let's make it really, really big. And so we went from about 300 accounts in 2019 to now about 9,000 accounts across the country. And from a few features to now a big, giant, robust ecosystem. And if nothing else, Neil, I love the scale. I love the idea of taking a small idea and making it really, really big. So that's what I've done really. Anywhere I've gone, I've tried to make things scale quickly and scale sustainably. And and bring the folks along for the ride as we do that as a company. And I think we've had some really great successes here, a lot of lessons too, a lot of things that were not so great, but I think we're on the right track, and I can't wait to see what this year brings us.
There's so many questions I have. I think you took a lot of your life and just summarized it very well in a very short amount of time. It's been about 5 minutes. Well, guys, let's see. So my first question would be, tell us a little bit more about your experience when you were actually working within a med spa environment, and then how that helped you. What were some of the key lessons to think from a strategic perspective that you took with you? Like, obviously learn how the ins and outs of operationally of the medical aesthetics practice. You know how to grow practices as well. So tell us about some of those key lessons, because obviously we have a lot of medical aesthetics practice owners who listen to this podcast. So, and then after that, let's talk about how that played into working on different features and growth strategy for Aesthetic Record as well.
This is an obvious answer for me, because this is still placates us today, even as we look at software. When you're in a med spa, when I was working with them, really closely day to day, you want to grow your business, right? You're so caught up in like how to generate leads and get people in the door, and like just the idea of growing the business and driving revenue and like more. And people get really disillusioned or really focused, hyper fixated, if you will, on marketing and this idea of like Instagram and ad spend and how do I get my practice to be, the top ranking person on Google. And there's a lot of focus on that. But then when the patient comes in the front door, nothing has been done to really elevate that experience. And so in the actual practice itself, we don't think about retention. We don't think about how to nurture a client. We don't think about what does that welcoming experience look like when you walk into the front door and you go to the front desk checkout process at the end of, the front and the back of the bookends. What's all the things in between, the consultation, how you're treated. Like there's this whole part of it that is an experience or an ambiance that really focuses on taking the marketing idea that you do externally and bringing it in-house. I think that's one of the big things that I always see is they focus externally really heavily because that's what you think about in driving your business. But then when I drive the business into the front door, if I don't actually capitalize on it here, there's no point. I've got to keep that leaky bucket just keeps running out, right? Just keeps emptying every single day, all the time. And so there's a constant churn. And I think there's a lack of focus on the internal or the intrinsic part of the company's culture, their values, how they express themselves as a med spa externally when you're actually inside of their four walls. That's kind of number one thing. The most important and the most impactful is that the systems and processes that we use in like corporate America don't exist in med spa world. There's a misnomer that they're too small to have processes. Like, oh, I'll just do it manually. It's just me here. No big deal. We've not seen automation really take on. We've not seen a lot of AI improvements in med spas. They're doing like brute force work to get the job done. And I marvel at that every day of like, how can they do so many things? Because they're doing so many things manually, but also seeing patients, looking at clinical outcomes. We've not seen this like sophistication yet of the business processes for med spas. I think as you're a small business and you're just learning how to do business things, to think about how to make it optimized, to make it more impactful for your patients, but also for your bottom line. It's a lot to take on at once, right? You're just trying to get the job done. And so I see things like SOPs, all the compliance components. How do you look at your books and figure out, are you losing money? Are you losing inventory? Are you tracking your inventory? Really the idea that everything in your practice is a data point or a metric that you have to be able to track and assess and see if we've won or lost, if we've been a loser or a gainer. That to me is how you think about a business growing. And I feel like we've not done that yet in this industry. It's coming, but I think if you look at their Instagrams, they're beautiful. They've spent tons of money on the marketing. They've done lots of things with getting pictures and videos and professional photography and all these amazing Canva, pieces. But at the end of the day, whatever happens in those four walls is what makes the business sustainable. And so I feel like that's really where I'm seeing a gap. And so we built Aesthetic Record features specifically for that. How can we correct what you can't do on your own yet by building it in the system for you? So like inventory tracking is a big one. Looking even at our CRM to say we need to know if they've actually purchased something to see if that ad did pay off in true ROI, fashion. It wasn't just like impressions and shiny things. But looking at a software to say, if I can't do things on my own manually, or I shouldn't do them, how can I buy a system, a tech stack that can do all these things and hold me accountable as a human who can't do things every day because I'm busy, but can hold me accountable to having the same reminders go out each day, having my confirmation emails go out, having payment reminders, et cetera, all these things that I can put on automations or I can do without me doing it myself, but just holding me accountable to saying, this has to be done for every chart. We need a photo. We need to have a consent that's signed. We have a questionnaire that's filled out. and really forcing that path or that navigation through the system so that a practitioner at the end of the day can say, I know that I did the right things because my system made me do that, at every step in the process. So to me, it's trying to correct the behavior, correct the problem by building a system that can help be a Band-Aid for the practices until they can get on their own, kind of get caught up to that.
Fascinating. There's so many golden nuggets that you threw in there in a short amount of time. I'm going to have to slow this podcast down, I think.
I'm a fast talker, Neil. I can't help it.
I know. So am I. We're going to need to do like 0.75 edit on this one to get everything so everybody can digest all the things we're going to talk about. I love what you said. Oh my God. There's so many great things you said. So, I think there was this trend because I think aesthetics is sexy, right? And there was this trend, and we talked about this on our last podcast together. But in the last 3 to 4 years, this industry doubled, right? So, which meant that competition became more fierce. I think it just became more popular to be a med spa owner, and it became kind of more like a trend, you would say, right? To own a med spa, which is good because it created a boom for me, a boom for you. But at the same time, it just changed the dynamics of the game in many different ways, right? People were just like, hey, I'm just going to open a spa, and I think consumers were bombarded by choices as well, which changed things a lot too. So I think you talked about a couple different things. You talk about KPIs, which is really important, right? Like I would say at least half of the people I talk to and my sales team talks to, we ask them like, hey, like what kind of results are you getting if you're working with another agency other than Patient Engine, what are you doing? And they actually can't give me attributable ROI, right? Versus like with us, we track every single appointment, cost per acquisition. What happened to this client? Did they show? Great. If they no show, we have a problem. If they showed, great. What happened to it? Did we upsell them? Did they stay? Did they book another visit? What did they buy? Some of these things, right? So we can track, the spend, cost per acquisition. Who cares about cost per lead these days, right? It's such a vanity metric. Cost per acquisition, butts and seats. What is our consult to close rate? And then what is our retention rate? Do people stay? Are people buying? What is our annual patient value? What is our lifetime patient value? Which helps you to understand how much you should be, which really just should be driving all of your decisions, right? And how much you should be investing in marketing. So I think those KPIs around sales or marketing are super important. And I'm sure, what would you say are some of the other KPIs for like operations? Can you touch on that a little bit? I know you're very much so like operationally sound as well as sales and marketing. So can you touch on that a little bit? Because I think those, a lot of people are like, maybe, I don't know if they're overwhelmed or they're shy. Maybe they just don't have the education when they come into ownership. But very few people track these things. And it's a different story if you're just crushing it and you're like, you're growing and you're like, man, like profitability is good. And maybe you're just a little bit overwhelmed by that growth. So sometimes I think that's a little bit of an excuse to track the KPIs because things are not as tight and maybe you have, you're really scaling at that point. But most of the time people don't have an excuse, I feel like. But what would you say are some, besides, I mean, maybe, I don't know if you want to reemphasize any of the ones I talked about, or maybe talk about some other KPIs, both on the top line and operationally, that we should be paying attention to, especially moving forward.
Well, first, I want to go back to one thing that you just said that I think is really important to reflect on. So if you think about 2015 through maybe 2019, but pre-COVID, we had businesses making money without any idea what they were doing, right? They didn't know how to look at their metrics. They didn't know about inventory. They were just printing money as med spas because we had such pent-up demand and we had this incredibly like booming economy that had great just aesthetics vibes like everywhere. Everyone they want to go to med spa. They want to get a treatment done. They want to get Botox, whatever. And so we had people who grew up sort of in the industry learning how to do business when there was no need to be so discerning and so focused on like the needle and where the needle was at, if they were growing or if they were profitable or not, because they were just making money. And so I think part of it is you're looking at business owners today who are like, oh man, those days are done. That COVID wave that we had after even post COVID, that's over now. Now we've got to get really specific about what we're making and the money that we're bringing in and spend our money wisely. So I think like to kind of go back to your metrics as well, because they really play off each other, right? It's all telling a story. I think for me, one of the most important ones that may not sound very sexy is like your rebooking rate. If you've gone to the dentist ever in your whole life, you don't ever leave without getting rebooked. Like it's just part of the dental culture, and they have incredible retention in dentistry. The retention rate's crazy good because you're always rebooked. I think in aesthetics, we don't rebook nearly enough. And if you can get a patient to rebook for the next visit and they're already on the schedule on the calendar, they get their reminder text, they come in, for the next visit. Rebooking is such a signal of the ability to take a patient who's just been converted potentially from a consultation and to get them back on the books immediately so they feel like they're part of your culture and part of your world. So I think rebooking to me is a critical metric that doesn't sound very sexy, but it's really, really important about just how you operate as a business. That's number one. I think number two is like your provider revenue per hour. If I'm putting a butt in a seat, I want to know if I'm making money on it. And I think if you've got a provider who is, let's say an MD, for instance, they're going to cost you more per hour than let's say an RN. If they have equal outcomes, equal amount of things they can actually do legally in the state, they can both do all the different procedures, and we can look at what's the overall revenue, but also the profitability, like what are they costing me per hour? You can get a really good sense of how to look at your schedule, how to like accommodate days that are really busy, days that have higher end services. If Fridays are huge for us, but it's all like a Botox factory on Fridays, like put your RN in because they're cheaper. And so you've got a cheaper takeaway with Botox, and you do it, let's say doing it all sculpture a day where it's much more expensive, higher ticket price. There's like an opportunity cost in there somewhere that I think is really important to look at. I think that provider hourly rate is important too, to see, are they upselling? Are they cross-selling? Are they capable of thinking about what pairs together really well? Are they bringing in retail to the conversation? Are they looking at the full like holistic 360 blueprint of the patient and wellness, not just like the lips and the cheeks? So I think this like hourly rate is important, because if I can't generate enough money per hour to pay for my salary, then as an owner or manager that performance-wise, we've got problems. And also looking at your capacity to say, we need to have another provider. We're overwhelmed, but unfortunately we can't even cover who we have on the books right now. So do we have to get better providers and get rid of those, or train these guys up before they make us go bankrupt or lose all of our money? So I think this like hourly rate's really, really important. And then I think it's also just more higher level, like generic KPIs. Like for instance, what are your margins? Like, are you profitable? Do you know what your inventory percentage is compared to what you're spending for the product versus what you're making for the product? That's a very easy concept to think about. We think about profits all the time and margins all the time, but if you ask a clinic, what did you pay for that unit of toxin? What did you make on it? They oftentimes don't know, because there's another layer there that you don't think about, which is your HR cost, right? Your nurse or your doctor, whoever's going to do it, the syringe, the front desk girl doing all the check in, check out. You have numbing cream in many instances for like lips. We have cannulas at $5 a pop. That does add up over time. And so looking at just a cost being fresh off the McKesson invoice or the Allergan invoice is not real. There's other things that are baked into that. And so if you want to look at your true profitability, if you don't factor in all those other costs, you are leaking money, which also includes your malpractice premiums, right? Your rent, your overhead. There's a fixed part of that that's obviously just on the books. But I think being very specific about what you're spending money on. If you look at the COVID era, we had people who were spending money on like crazy things in their practices, right? A sound system that costs whatever per month, or they had those like aromatherapy things they were paying, monthly to have these like scents in their practice. And it's like, you can't pay your payroll. You have no money. Like these things are not important. They're not pushing the business forward. Cut those things and we look at our Amex here every single month to say, do we have a thing that kind of snuck on, subscriptions that snuck in there and we were paying for it, we don't want it? Like, what are you spending money on that's not really important for you right now and today? Looking at your overall margin, I think it's just such a critical part of good financial discipline to look at your business every day and say, do we waste money? Is there a way to do it that's cheaper? It's equally as good, but cheaper. Can I find partnerships and things to get things for a lesser rate? Am I telling the vendors, like, let's negotiate a new price? I'm growing. Like, what are we doing to make the costs go down? Because at the end of the day, profits make the world go around. And I'm okay to be in debt if I'm doing an expansion, take some capital loans or whatever. But I need to make money and have profit to be able to make the world go around. And so looking at things like your HR costs, your inventory costs, your two biggest costs in your books, like focusing on that and dwelling on that, like legit attention spent on my inventory costs, my holding costs, my inventory turn rate. Am I able to get inventory in and out quickly? Am I looking at spoilage? Do I have expiration issues? But also on the HR side, am I paying bonuses that are actually worthwhile? Am I doing commission, which is a fee splitting issue and it could be illegal in many states? Like, am I being a good steward of the money that I have with my HR costs to make sure that I'm not just wasting money and rewarding things because they've been here for a long time or because they're so nice or, whatever that is, without them having a true financial impact on the business and actually driving us forward. So I think at the end of the day, two that I love the most, rebooking, I think is just indicative of your culture. The revenue per hour is indicative of like how good your staff is at actually doing their job. But then just looking at the overall, like sort of gross metrics of profitability and like, what are you spending money on versus what you're bringing into the practice each day?
Rebooking is also tied to follow-ups a
Mm-hmm.
lot, right? I know that I have very, very successful seven-figure clients who are very stable and cash flow really well, who always said, hey, like, we're just good at following up with people. We're touching base, but like, I think unfortunately what technology is making a lot of, I want to say us, I'll take a societal blame, but it's making us lazy, right? So, which means like, oh, technology is going to do everything. It's like, no, it's not, because human beings still like talking to human beings. So, you should be your staff, whether it's your providers if they have downtime, or your front desk, whoever patient care coordinators, like they should be reaching out to your clients, seeing how they're doing post treatment, and then if they're not on the schedule, getting them rebooked, like you said. So just really just like it's in your best interest and in the client's best or the patient's best interest for that to happen. So I'm glad you brought that up. Number two, I come from the consulting world, so that's the perfect example of utilization, right? You have a consultant who's not sitting on a bench, you're not making money, you're just paying them. So you got to think about your rooms as like consulting rooms, right? Like, here's your room, here's how much it costs every single month to have your fixed expenses and your staff, and you gotta make more than you spend on that room, right? So
Yeah.
so that's when we end up at profitability, right? Are we really making money? And if we're not making money, what's the problem? And the problem is usually both on the top line and somewhere in the operationally with what you're spending. And it's funny you said that, because today I look at this personally and in my businesses, but I just really just was not, I guess I overlooked it, but like I don't check my personal email ever. And I checked my email and it was like Apple services, Apple services, Apple services, and there's all these different apps. And I'm like, man, I'm just like,
Wasting money.
I'm wasting money. Like, what's going on? It's like, one of my like plant care apps, it's just like, come on, man.
Plant care. But
Yeah.
I think what you said there that was really, really important is you have to know what the problem is with the KPI. Like, it's not enough to have a metric. And we see this every day here at Aesthetic Record. People want all these reports. Like, but what are you going to do with it? Like, what does this report even mean to you? Do you know what you're looking at? Do you know what these numbers mean? If you have a trend that's going up or down, what does that tell you about your business? And I'll give you an example, even here for Aesthetic Record. With Aesthetic Record, we have a lot of demos every day, and our conversion rate is lower. With Lead AR, we have lower demos, but we convert almost every client. So looking at those two metrics, it's like, okay, what are you going to do as a business? Well, I know for Lead AR, I just need to get more leads in, because if we get them in, we'll convert them, right? We know if they come in, we have a high conversion rate, so just get in more bodies in the door. But with AR, it's like we're getting the bodies in, but we're not doing a good enough job selling. So we need to look at our sales messaging, our follow-up plan. Are we finding the true like value anchor for the patient or for the practice and the true pain point? So it's like, if you have the metrics, it's not enough to have a metric and to say, I know what my gross margin is. Like, that's great, but what do you do with that number? What do you do? What is your instinctive desire to go like fix or correct or augment based on what you see in the numbers? And if you can't get to that level, the numbers are just vanity. It's just like having impressions on Instagram. Like, what does that even mean? It means nothing if you can't take it out and look at like, what are the behaviors that drive that number? And so I think, to your point, if you're going to look at any of these things in the practice, like follow-up, is it a follow-up issue? Is it a conversion issue? Is it bad consultations? Is it just a bad experience overall? Like, we don't know. And so really being able to take yourself out of the equation and go look at what's really wrong in the practice, and like walk through as if you're a patient, the start to finish journey, and to find out if you were that patient, how would you feel in that moment? Like, would you feel like you're being heard, listened to, taken care of? If you're a provider, do you feel like you're getting what you need to be successful? Do you have what you need as far as different tools to use, different products to use? Do you have a great schedule that you can actually do things and make money? Like, you've got to take yourself out of it and take the ego out of the equation and say, I may not be the best manager or owner, but I'm going to walk through this, through your eyes and in your shoes, and see what I can improve. And until you can do that, it's really hard to make the changes that you need to make to improve those numbers.
How does Aesthetic Record What kind of capability does it have for those that don't know?
Yeah.
What kind of capabilities does it have for like some of these reports that you said, in how standardized or custom it can be? Like you said, I'm with you. It's like strategy is one thing, planning is one thing, reports are one thing, execution is the most important thing. But with that already said a couple of times, tell us a little bit more about those capabilities.
Yeah, I think it's tricky in the software because I can't do so much about the actual training at the front, in the front of the house, but we do make reports much more applicable. So, for instance, if you wanted to see like cross selling, a patient who's received X and Y, they've received like Dysport and Revanesse. Like you can start to look at reporting from what things pair together well, what things a patient's coming in for frequently, what are your highest converting products in the practice that those things get more leads in the door for those high conversion products versus those that maybe cost a lot. The price point's really high, but they don't actually convert very often. And looking at things like rebooking, we give you like the next step, right? So if I say your booking history, if your booking report says you're not rebooking very frequently, right? You're just not doing a good job. I'm going to tell you which providers are the least good at that thing. So I want you to know that Neil does a great job, but Tiffany's terrible at it. So if rebooking reports are really important to you and that percentage being high is important to you, you've got 4 who are great and 1 who's just a dud. So like knowing who that dud is to see like what do we do to improve the number? Well, we've got to get Tiffany, who's at the bottom of the barrel here, to improve her performance. So I think what we've tried to do is look at the business from not a naive perspective or like a newbie perspective, but to say reports that are really accounting and sort of investment banker-esque looking and focus don't make sense for the normal business owner. Make those reports feel like they're part of the practice operations and that you can pinpoint within the operational flow what is broken. So for instance, with inventory traceability, we know that if we can't figure out the cost of company, it's because they're not putting that particular number on the inventory item. So when I go to like trace it on someone's face, it's not deducting the right amount of money. You can instantly see that in the report. Like, that the numbers are crazy and it tells you why they're crazy because you've missed all the like actual cost of company that you need to figure out like your margin for a product. So we try to make it where you can instantly see if the number is changing, what's wrong. I can't tell you how to fix it so much because I can't give you like the training aspect, but I can tell you at least within that metric, like the underlying problem here is because of this particular issue or this thing. I think also just making sure that whatever needs to be tracked is tracked. That's the other part too, is people want to do great metrics and great reporting, but it's almost like a procedure. You've got to document in the beginning. And so if you wait to the very end of the quarter or the month or the year to look at metrics and you've not done a really great job of having very like hygienic, clean data all the way through, your year or your month or your quarter, it means nothing to you. It's garbage in, garbage out. And so part of what we've done is to say, you've got to report these things each day with each transaction, with each patient interaction. You need to put in these particular pieces of information or else you cannot get what you want out of it. And so forcing people to do things like when they check out to make sure that we know if they've used coupons, patient wallets, that they've used, reward programs. I want to know all that up front, not in a separate system where they're like doing things in Square and they come back to us and doing things. I can't really look at that as like a true, clear, accurate data picture. I need to know what you're doing in the system. And so it kind of made it where unless you really purposely try to not do things the right way, it's going to kind of navigate you again down those like that stair step. Because if you wait till 6 months in and look up and say, gosh, all my numbers are wrong, well, that's 6 months too late. So I want to make sure that you start from the beginning of really looking at setting it up correctly, setting up your processes. And with any software system, right, EMR or whatever you get, there's a training curve. Like there's a learning curve that you've got to figure out how to work the system, how to put things in, how to be accurate and correct in your data, how you put your patients in, your inventory and your services in. Like there's just a time part that you can't avoid in the beginning to set things up correctly so that you get the right data on the back end. So I think that's part of it too, is as an owner looking at when you bring in a system, if you bring in a new procedure of some sort, right, you got to learn how to do the procedure. You don't just like walk in like through osmosis and know how to do a procedure, an open heart surgery, for instance. You have to go learn and train and develop those skills. It's the same for technology. You've got to learn and train and develop even like prompting AI that takes time to learn too. But it's that time on the front end that gives you what you need to put the stuff in correctly. So whatever you have is not garbage in, garbage out. It's like accurate, legit information in, and you get really great data and really great data points out so you can make some good decisions.
Yeah. What do you think is the most important function of AI and what, you're obviously swim pretty deeply in both aesthetics and tech, and 72,000 other things, but what do you think is like going to be the most important function of AI as far as like the evolution of, I guess, both tech and aesthetics, right? And I think, unfortunately, I feel like we're just continuously bombarded by so much information, and I think that creates more of confusion a lot of times, and it creates, in some ways, this shiny object syndrome. And hey, I want to be the med spa that appears when somebody chat GPTs me type of mentality, you know, which I think is important, but it's most people don't even have the basics covered. So, um, what do you think is like is going to what's the next wave, and like what are you guys focusing on as well? And because I know in my agency, like we're like, you know, we were asking ourselves, and even my spas, we're asking ourselves, like, what do we need to focus on? And I think sometimes we just need to take a step back and just really understand, like, you know, we're still on the forefront of a human service based business, right? And that, in my opinion, is important. So I think it's just understanding like what we can do to make our lives and jobs a little bit easier, but not get away from the core of our business. And I know in our agency where, you know, we're kind of focusing on like, you know, speed to lead, for example. Like, can we build a campaign faster with AI, right? Can we make changes faster with AI? Like, is AI going to be able to give us better analytics or help us make less errors, you know? And I think a lot of people, like, you know, lead conversion is, in my opinion, has become even more important than lead generation in some ways, right? Because of all the oversaturation of ads. And people are like, well, I'm just going to get a bot to call my leads. And then they come to us, they're like, it failed. And, you know, and it's like, in my opinion, it's like everybody's got this like eye on the prize. They're like, oh my God, I'm just going to, you know, eliminate all my HR functions, or, you know, outsource this, automate that. And, you know, for us, for example, like bringing in an AI power dialer has been like really crucial to helping our appointment closing team get better results for our clients, for example, you know. But you know, I think there's a lot of chit chatter around like, oh, we need to just do everything and like just replace this and go full throttle. And I'm like, guys, like you got to fix your console to close rate. You're selling at 10%. Like, what's, you know, where are the priorities? So would love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on that. I know that, you know, you kind of see the tech side, you see the ops side, and on the spa side of things, and you do a lot of thought leadership on similar topics. So I would love to hear more.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with AI. I think also if people are thinking that it's just using ChatGPT, they're behind schedule. I mean, we've got so many amazing tools, and I mean, to your point here, we are very heavily baked in AI. We were part of like the early beta programs with OpenAI. Like we love AI here. We're so obsessed with it in our company because it makes us do a whole lot of things with a very few amount of people. And so I think there's part of it where it's a scary concept and it doesn't make sense to people in the everyday of like what you could actually do, like what could you actually accomplish with an AI tool. So I think in aesthetics, particularly, to like bring that down to like the front line of a med spa. My philosophy is like humans want a human, right? Like we want humans to do human things. And so if I'm in a med spa, I want to have my practitioners, my front desk people, my client success people to be able to do all the human work as their primary focus all day long. If a practitioner is doing charting all day, or they're doing follow-ups, or they're doing case reviews, or they're doing things that are not human focused, I can get a tool for that, right? I need a human to go do human things. Human to human interaction is where we succeed and we prevail. I don't want to have a person doing menial, manual, clicking on a keyboard work. If I can automate that with a better tool, who, by the way, is smarter in many cases, they have more access to data, right, quickly, who can look at reports in different places and aggregate all the information together and give me like an output for that. I don't need a human to do that anymore. I need an AI tool that's really well prompted, really well programmed, and has like the capacity to learn and develop and grow. Many of them, some are better than others. I don't want to name them live because they'll come kill me right in my sleep. I don't want Grok to come for me or Chat GPT, but I think at the end of the day in a med spa, to make it so that your providers and your people on the front lines can go do more human things It's how I'd use AI for me as a tool. Now we're launching an AI like phone option, right? Like an open or an AI agent who you call in, you can say book me or reschedule me, or I want to buy gift cards or memberships, because I don't necessarily need a human to do that call, right? That's 8 minutes per booking. That is just like, what's your name, your birthday, what do you want to book for? What clinic are you wanting to go to? Here's your confirmation number. That's not really a human needed interaction. If I can have a bot that can do it as good as a human, it's just part of a process getting done, right? I can do it online or I can do it in the practice on the phone. But now if we have an adverse event, we have a concern or a client has a question or a problem, that's a human call I need to make, right? That I need to have a person actually take that call and answer them. But I can now do that because I have an AI bot doing all the things that don't require me to do them. And so I think that for a practice looking at AI, saying, where do I use this? For me, it's like, how do you make your staff more capable of doing human interaction because you've taken things off their plate? And then within that, also getting better information more quickly for your practice. So for instance, spreadsheets and things like you mentioned about the KPIs, you can put all that stuff into an AI tool and say, make sense of this. Like, what is the trend that you're seeing here? What could be the reason for this? Diagnose my practice and where I have a gap, getting answers more quickly. Even things like campaigns and like starting to look at verbiage and things like, yeah, that's a lot of like cheat sheet stuff you can do. And you can put in like, give me 5 ways to do XYZ. Like, sure, those are quick prompts. Like everyone does it. But at the end of the day, to focus my energy, it's like, how do I help humans do more human work by automating tasks, by using AI to drive tasks? We use a process here with OpenClaw where you can go into one system and get a thing and put a different system in a different system. It's doing this like agentic work for me where I'm not forced to go find downloads and then upload them somewhere else and get a response from that and put it in an email. Like these like chain reaction things that are not superhuman involved, but require a lot of work for a person to do it manually just because they need a person to click the buttons and click the mouse. That to me is AI work. Like take it for AI. Now on the tech side, very different.
So instead of paying somebody, a solid hourly wage, you can take, you can focus that hourly wage on maybe revenue generating activities and then focus and then spend less and get a lot of stuff up their plate. But I love what you said about allow, enable, empower human beings to do more human things and cultivate and nurture relationships and use those tools to get rid of or complete the tasks that are standardized, menial, can be automated, can be standardized. The tasks that a lot of us actually probably don't like doing even.
I agree. But I think what you said about speed to lead is also super critical as an example. If there are things that we need a human to do perfectly every time, we know it's never going to happen, right? We need a speed to lead conversation. Like, is it 5 minutes? It's like you're dead. If you don't get back to lead in 5 minutes, like you're done. They've gone somewhere else. We know it's a hard, fast rule about you've got to be the first one to call back the client, to email, the text, whatever. I want to automate that process because there is no gray area. We know if they put a form, contact us form in, we click the button, submit it. I need you to respond back to me and says, hey, I got your form. You're interested in XYZ. When can you come in for an appointment? That speed to lead process is a great example of I need humans to do human things, but I also need humans to do things perfectly every time. And that's not a legitimate request. It will never happen. How do I make things like catch all functions where I know if a human doesn't do it, it still gets done. And I think that's a great example of at 2:00 in the morning, I'm not on the phone waiting for somebody to call, right? I'm not in the practice waiting for a speed to lead or for a lead to come in. But if I can automate a communication of some sort, that then a human comes back in a week or two and follows up or a day or two and follows up, great. But at least that first point of contact, we know for sure it's getting done the right way every time because we're automating that process, even through an AI agent, a chatbot, whatever, or just a true automation. I think that's also part of this is like being realistic with the fact that I'll tell them to do it again. Well, you can tell them all day long they're not going to do it. Make it where they don't have a choice because it's getting done for them and that you're automating the processes that are so critical for your success that you don't need to rely on a human to do them anymore. So I think there's like part of it that it is humans doing human work, but also we're not infallible. We do make mistakes. We forget to do things. We get busy, don't follow up. Automate that stuff so that you make sure it gets done every single time. And then you mentioned the tech side. I think the tech part of it is really every single day, it's like a whole new world. So in the morning, you wake up and you realize that there's a new thing out from Grok or from Claude, or there's just so many tools, and every day we're doing new things and crazy things, and things are breaking. And it's almost like the Bitcoin era when it had coins that were like going crazy and then also failing the next day. It's kind of a similar model, but on the AI side, we're able to develop things in such a record pace. Like I've developed, I think, 3 apps in the past 2 weeks that are now live that we're using in production for our teams, for our clients. We just built our entire system all over again. We have a new ARV2 launching in probably a month or so. We rebuilt the entire thing with an AI backend. So it's all built through AI, like sort of vibe coding-esque ideas. We're able to build things in the moment for clients that need it, like dashboards and things that we could have never done 5 years ago. We can build crazy systems that are super complex, but have the most easy integration opportunities ever. So if you want to bring in, I don't know, let's say a payroll company into your system, you just connect it quickly. It's a 5-minute connection. That's a 5-week connection 3 years ago. Now it's a 5-minute connection. So I think we're able to do things so quickly and so just done well too, by the way, like done really, really well. Like a Stripe connection, for instance, that would take 6 months to really get it done before. Now it's like it takes 10 minutes because it's all already kind of built in. But at the same time, with great power comes great responsibility. Because you can doesn't mean you should. And so there are a lot of things that are being built right now. Like let's say an EMR, for instance. If you're going to build an EMR, you probably can do it with an AI tool, sure. But there's so much around HIPAA and compliance and looking at like PHI and PCI for credit cards. Like there's a lot of infrastructure things that are just part of like the legal framework that your vibe coding tool can't tell you that, right? Like it doesn't tell you should do all these things legally and follow these particular ways to protect your business and your practices. So part of it is like we're giving people a lot of leeway to do some really cool, amazing things. But there's also this like back end of it. You have to have a client success team. How are you going to look at your bugs and your tech fixes? Are you trusting that what you've built as a non-tech person is good enough to sustain, a heavy Friday traffic day when you've got a practice full of people and you need this tool to work? There's just a lot that goes into it that we can work really quickly and we can do things that are pretty amazing in such a fast pace now. But you got to now support whatever you build. I think that's a big part of the tech world. You're seeing these companies who are growing fast and the next day they've gone away because they forgot to think about the fact that the business has to sustain. It can't just be making cool tools. It has to make cool tools, sell them and service them for a long time. And I think you're going to see a lot of these tech giants that will fall, I think, in the next 3 years and new ones will emerge. But I think this technical industry, we're building so many cool things for practices, like even the AI consultation tools, things that are in the practice now, looking at diagnostic tools, even for like, if they have X, Y, and Z, symptom, what does the actual disease look like? We can do so many things in medicine now. We have an AI charting tool in our system. We can all describe, the dictation and has like AI note taking. We're just finding ways to make their jobs easier because we've got such great tech innovation. But I think at the end of the day, in all facets of life, we want to make people able to do the things that they can do, humanly speaking, really well, and take all the things that are manual off their plate.
Fascinating stuff. But what are your thoughts about, I know I'm going to challenge you a little bit because you're a tech entrepreneur too. And in some ways I am too, just a little bit more focused on the patient acquisition and coaching side of things, and even so, for us, like from an agency, I created an AI Neil, right? Because AI Neil's been on hundreds of calls, either on sales or coaching, and it does a really good job. But it can do it really fast. But then, what are your thoughts around like us becoming slightly obsessed and reliant to a point where maybe we are not sharpening our own growth? Because there's that dark side as well, right? Because for example, they say there's studies being done with a lot of younger people that are saying like, their memory has become really bad. It's become really bad because of short form content as well, right? Which is powered by AI now. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Tiphany Hall?
I'm going to give you the devil and the angel because I've got two perspectives on this. One is like, why do you need a memory anymore if you have AI? Like some of these things that we're going to lose, we won't need because we have another option for doing those things. It's like a calculator,
That's the
right?
devil?
That's the devil. The calculator for me is like, if I have a calculator, I don't need to learn long division because I have a calculator, which to me, that's not how I operate, but I think that is a good argument that we're seeing very prevalent. People are saying, I don't need to know how to do these things now because I have an AI tool. We can make a lot of cases for that, but at the end of the day, you're handing over your entire tribal knowledge to an AI tool that has its own opinions and its own, we're humans teaching it how to operate and we're not perfect. So I think there is some risk there about the bots coming back and killing us all. But I think if we look at people who are relying on tools exclusively to do everything for them, you start to see the cracks emerge, right? The content's not always the best content. We start to see errors, or it's not the right context, or there's just things that don't quite fit the right way, or the emails are very generic. Like you can start to kind of, even when you have a really great tool and great prompts, you can start to see a very AI sort of focused cadence. And at some point, you lose touch of your business. And so even if I'm responding for me, it's reading my emails and all these things are happening, I'm still accountable for that business. I have to know what's going on. So I need to still make sure that I know where all the parts pieces are moving and, where all the chess pieces are falling, because I'm still responsible at the end of the day. And so I think part of it is you can use an AI tool to do automations, to do things that are manual, but you have to still be above that, looking down at like a 30,000 foot view to say, what are we doing as a company and as a business, and what's going out? What are we automating? What are we doing with an AI tool? Like that's kind of the devil for me, is like, we can do so many things, do them so well, and we can stop doing things that are not smart, not good, productive things to do. And we don't care if we lose that skill because we have AI to do the skill for us. But at the end of the day, if you're a leader of a business, you've got to be strategic. You have to have vision. You have to have the ability to follow through. You as a leader must have those skills. So we were going to see a big age disconnect. Like my little boy's 12. He loves AI. He is not learning those skills nearly enough to be like a strategic thought leader. When he is 25, becoming a manager will be really hard for him because he's depending on an AI tool to learn how to do things, to hold him accountable. People who are leading companies are using AI tools every day, but they also use their mind, right? Their strategic vision. They're thinking a lot during the day, like taking time to just think and to process things. There is still like a brain part of, like, we're knowledge workers, right? You and I are both knowledge workers. We've got to still have knowledge in our brain to do the things, but we can also stop doing, again, so much like menial manual task. But at the end of the day, my brain and what I'm able to think about strategically is the value to aesthetic record, not what an AI tool is doing for me. So I think there's a part of it we'll always have like a higher tier intellect or leader who can be strategic, who can talk to humans in the practices and make their employees love them and want to work there and be committed to the, to the practice, or who can tell a patient, we're so glad that you're here. Can you get a bottle of water, or, help walk them out of the practice? Like there's still a part of it where thinking about all those touch points and those pieces and how to make people feel special. And that's still a human behind that, powering all of that and being like the engine behind that. So I think we're learning things that are important as a human race, the more we use AI, because those things become distinctly more important for us to do human things. Whereas things that maybe are not so important to me, we're like, I don't know, math facts or all the state capitals, or things that are just kind of dumb that you can look up on the internet. Like, I don't care if you forget that. It's not important to me as a business owner or a business manager. That's fine. But do the things that are uniquely you, that you bring to the table, that only a human can do. I think is where you focus. Now, that being said, for me, the angel part of my mind is that I can do so much more work so much faster because I get a prompt, I get ideas, and I can take whatever's a 60% idea and make it 100% pretty fast. So for us, like content, I'm sure you guys are doing a ton of content. We can prompt, even like 50 content ideas, and then give me bullet points of what I could use on these content ideas. I've got to still make some images in some cases, or I can prompt those too, but we're able to do such fast content, such fast iteration. We can dictate now, like, how do you fix a problem, and have it build a graph for us or PowerPoint deck for us. So we're able to go to our client with a solution so much faster because we can just prompt it and give all the things that are in our mind all jumbled up into like a really nice format. But here at AR, at least, we require you to check all your work pretty intensely. Your spelling, your context, is it the right feature development? Is it the right, instructions for the client? You are responsible here ultimately for whatever you put out. So if your AI tool is not very good, or she leads you astray, that's still on you. And we can never offset that liability, right? I can't say Neil is great, but his AI tool went crazy. It's not his fault. No, it is his fault, because at the end of the day, Neil is responsible for AI Neil. And so really putting the onus back on the employee, or our team here, to say, whatever you put out is your problem. So you better check everything that you do, learn to prompt better, learn to get more skill with using AI tools, because whatever we put into the ether, it's got our brand on it and our name on it. And I will not risk that because we just cut a corner and took a shortcut and used an AI tool to like write our emails or our blog. So I'm pretty psycho about that, because I just don't want people to think that our content or our voice is not as good because we looked at the AI tool and just took it straight off the needle and said, yep, here's our content, and didn't check it or didn't look at it. Because while it is great, it's also imperfect as well. We know that context matters, et cetera. So I just think there's a place where forget the things that don't matter, who cares, but also as you look at how to make your voice and your brand be consistent, you got to check all your work and make sure that you're doing a really great job of building either a great learning or knowledge base for your AI tool, or that you're reviewing it each and every time that you send anything out into the ether.
I agree. I think the AI does not have the ability to capture and truly recognize like individual emotion of every human being. And it does it. I mean, I look at myself and I'm like, man, like I can do a lot of stuff in a day, more so than an average human being. Like I can knock out so many things in a day, even before I used AI. So now I'm like a machine. But then I'm like, man, that's that side of things. The other side of things is that emotional awareness, right? Emotional intelligence, and like understanding, human relationships. And I'm very logical. I think you are in a similar camp. But then, those of us who are actually more logical, like see the value of this even more so. But then we're also recognizing our own gaps of like, oh, these are the things we have to learn. Like you were saying, right? These are the things we have to learn about each other. These are the things we have to learn about other people as well, too. So that, I think, emotional intelligence, that voice, that tone, that mood, all these different things, those are the pieces that are hard to cover. They're hard to cover. So,
but I want to ask you a question about this too, because this is where I feel like people get confused. In my role at AR, for instance, I'm more of a strategic thinker. Like I do a lot of things here. Don't get me wrong. I'm a doer for sure. But at the end of the day, my role here is, I manage all the teams across the whole business, plus external things as well. What my value is at this business here is to be a thinker, to think about the strategic process that we will go through, how all of our business units work together. How do we save money? How do we help our employees love our company even more? How to make clients happy? Like I'm paid here to think about how to build this business and then help equip teams to go build it. So for me, for AI, that is a skill set that I have uniquely that an AI bot can't quite harness, right? It doesn't know all the context it needs to think about how to grow this business and to have relationships with the industry and be on podcasts and like have friends that are allies that can help us get what we need for GPO pricing or for, integration things. Like you need me as a human to go do that work. But what I need to make sure that I have is like a toolkit of AI resources that I can say to my team, now that I've made this decision, it's the right thing for the business. Here is a toolkit you can use to go execute that. So now the execution phase of my strategic thinking is where AI comes into play, because now I can take whatever I've thought in my mind is like the big picture, and then boots on the ground, day-to-day operations becomes an AI tool powered thing or, based thing. That to me is where you need it. So I think if you look at a company as you scale up a tier, from a frontline worker to like an owner or a manager of many people or many things, you're going to use it less and less for your actual physical operations of your day to day, but to equip your teams, your people, your clients. So I think there is a part of it where you're more removed from it the more you go up, because I don't do manual work all day, right? I don't do a lot of like manual, like over and over again sort of tasks and things. I'm thinking about more of the big picture, but people who work with me are doing the manual things all day long. And my job is to make sure they have what they need to quit doing that so they can execute my strategic vision every day. And so I think it all ties together in a way. But if you're the practice owner and you're like out there looking at AI tools and like physically doing all this work yourself, you're focused on the wrong part of your business. You're focused on the part of the business that's too much in the weeds. Take a step back and look at like, what do you do to like paint the big brush strokes of the business to fix the business overall, and then go find tools you can use to help your team be more equipped to go execute that vision long term. So I don't know. I just think that's part of it. There's got to be a line somewhere that says, if you're the doer or the thinker, it's going to show up differently for you in your day-to-day role.
That's why the input is so important, because everybody has access to these tools.
Yeah. That's
why prompting strategy is so important, right? That's why, like you said, the big ideas are really important, because then you can, I guess you could ask to give you like ideas as well, which at that point you're just absolutely eroding your own creativity and individuality.
Interviews, like we interviewed a candidate recently, and then they're interviewed on the second interview that we do. It's like via Zoom at second level. They're phenomenal, right? They're fantastic. They sound great. They have great answers. And, of course, so they're probably reading something, or they have a chat, they're prompting in real time or dictation in real time, getting answers. They come here and do a live interview and they're like hamstrung. They don't have any of the answers. So it's like, you can do these things to cut the corners, but you will get found out at some point, right? You got to go in front of a live panel and do an interview. And you were so impressive and so incredible in your second interview because you had an AI tool in front of you, and now you're on your own and you're like a complete disappointment, just like you nosedive, you bomb. That's a big deal. And so I think we're looking at, from an HR perspective, like resumes, how you look at talent and you scout talent. It's more important today that you have a human kind of looking in that process, because you can get past all the filters now. You can build a resume that's specifically going to get through like Indeed's filters, and you can obviously hack an interview by using like an AI tool to give you all the answers. So some things that we're seeing are just causing more problems than they are solving them. Things like that just cause my team more problems and more headaches. But I get why they're doing it. Like, I appreciate the hustle of the people who are trying to figure it out. But I would just say for anyone, you can only fake it so long. You got to learn the skills, like learn proper, English, proper grammar, how to construct an email or a blog post. You could only outrun, that for so long until it will find you and catch up.
Amen. Input output too,
Yeah.
input output, super important. Yeah, I guess I definitely think it's, man, I have so many thoughts about this that I think we need to do a podcast at Aesthetic next. And
We'll do an AI session.
yeah, I do think that the people who are going to rely on it for the wrong things are going to really find themselves at a disadvantage later on. And moving forward, relationships are going to be even more important. Like you see also companies who are really, in my, like, for example, now, good luck getting hold of somebody at Amazon for customer service, right?
Terrible.
And people are pissed. People are pissed. And this is a, top 5 business in the world. Like, it's tough. And I think relationships are going to be super important. Having a trustworthy brand is going to be super important. I think this is why, like, I guess in some ways it's maybe silly, but influencer marketing has become, so important as well, because people are looking towards people they can trust and connect with, because sometimes you just can't tell a difference. And sometimes, like you said, the polished resume or the super sexy brand may not always, it may be just like a Kickstarter car where you have, a really, really crappy engine under the hood. So I think that's super important moving forward. Tiphany, tell us a little bit more about what you have going on this year. Some cool upcoming, I know you're everywhere, but like, where can people find you if they want to connect with you in person? Where can people find you online as well? I know you have a pretty, well-known name in the industry, but if people want to connect with you as well, they have to get through Christy, obviously your assistant, but
she's the gatekeeper.
She's amazing.
This is going to be a great year. We've got, like I mentioned, we're launching our new system kind of mid-year. We're going to do a 10-city tour. So we'll be in 10 different cities across the U.S. doing like a true hands-on, like 4-hour session with AR and all the new bells and whistles, but also having a cool, like, happy hour with our vendors and just some ways to, again, to your point, to get together as humans and like figure out how to help each other as a cohort and build our businesses together as practices. So that'll be launching in June, July, and then right after Aesthetic Next also. So very excited about doing that. We've never done like a true tour of any sort with AR. And so going out to practices like in these big markets, it's going to be so fun, but also just to show our new system off and what we've done and how we've hopefully optimized things. That's kind of one way, but I'll be at AMSPA obviously next week. But looking at the summer, we've got Aesthetic Next coming up in September. So if you've not ever been, it's time to go to Aesthetic Next. It's an incredible conference. We love it. Obviously, it's ours, but it's a great time to network and to make those key industry connections, but also to learn and find out what's new. I'm going to be at AMWC Korea this year. That's going to be in June. So I'm going to be in Korea working on how to help build better practices and some of the practice ideas that we have in the U.S. that can really help transcend to the Korean market as well. So very excited about doing that. That's going to be for sure a highlight this year. But I always do Medical Aesthetic Arts Institute's program there, I think in September this year. And then just things throughout the year, conferences and such that we have going on, all the time. We have Accelerator for our own that we put on as well. It's in May 1st. It's like a business incubator weekend retreat. We really focus on just the practice, like just the actual practice part of it. No clinical, no lasers, no devices, like just your metrics, your business, how to grow it, how to build it. So really, from May until the end of the year, we've got things from Accelerator to AMSPA coming up. We've got Aesthetic Next, or we've got our tour. We've got some things in Korea, just a lot happening that really focuses on, in my opinion, Neil, if you're looking at like what's the next thing for aesthetics, it's like the business part, like really focus on building the practices, the compliance angle. I could talk about clinical things all day long. I think the clinical things are very, very important. Regenerative medicine's so huge right now, peptides, all that's so critical. But it's also a distraction from the things that really matter to many people, which is like, how do you build a business that's sustainable? So a lot of things I focus on are really about the business part of it. But I do think going into like this fall, we're going to see a lot happening with peptides, with longevity, just the business overall, the industry changing so abruptly that hopefully I'll get to do some more things about how to build a business that's sustainable when you look at branching out to bring in like testosterone therapy or hormone therapy or just some cool things that, looking at scaling things for me again is what I love to do. And so I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to do more of that in the back half of the year because we have no idea what's going to happen. But I think this PDGF thing a peptide thing has shown us, if nothing else, that there's a lot of underbelly out there in the aesthetic market, a lot of like riffraff and hot tea to spill. And so I think there'll be some things pop up before the end of the year that we can get involved in as well here at Aesthetic Record. But if you want to get a hold of me, my Instagram is probably the best way. It's just Dr. Tiphany Hall, or you can email me at tiffany@aestheticrecord.com. That's always a way to do it. But to Neil's point, Christy's kind of a bulldog, so good luck. Instagram is the best way, or LinkedIn. And we just get so much. We get so much content here, so many emails and things that if I don't respond to you, hit me again. I'll try to get back with you. Bug me, drive me crazy, and I'll get back with you as well. But Instagram for us has all of our updated things happening with the tour, with Aesthetic Next, with Aesthetic Record. Definitely follow our Instagram if you want to know what we're doing here at AR, because we have things launching all the time. And it's important that, we stay part of the industry as well. So we want to hear what you're doing too and follow you and see what your practice is doing. But yeah, busy year, busy things happening in 2026. And I can't wait to see where this all lands by the end of the year. We've had such massive changes in the past, 12 months, even 36 months. Like if you look back 3 years ago, this industry looks totally different than it did 3 years ago. Totally different. And so I can't wait to see what we do in the next, 1 year to 3 years.
Yeah. And I think just to sum things up a little bit, I really liked our discussion about AI and what to focus on. I think moving forward, actually less is more. For real, less is more. I like that you said, because this is the sector I swim in so much more, the business side, the sales and marketing side of things, which is, it's the dark side of this industry, you could say. And, but very important one, right? Very important one. I think people are starting to realize that, just going to conferences and, looking at, like you said, devices and new technologies, new peptides, whatever it may be, is not going to be enough. And we need to be better. We need to be smarter. We need to be more efficient. We need to spend our money more wisely, but we also need to invest more into marketing in a way that's going to align with these KPIs. We're actually need to hire the right staff that's going to help us sell these things.
Yes.
There's been a lot of wake up calls, I think. And, I'm very vocal about talking about sales and marketing and about finding the right talent to help us, because people ask me all the time. They're like, what's going to help me differentiate? And I basically, my simple answer to that is it's really just going to be your marketing and sales on a front end, because you need that to have a patient experience these days, because of the saturation of that this industry boom has created. So it's really critical, and that's where I think having that human element, a human connection, is going to be so important. Like you said, when somebody comes into their practice, that's your time to shine. That's the time for that magic. And what you do with that client or with that patient is gonna matter so much, because it's certainly it's going to be more and more expensive to acquire new patients, I think. And the sales and marketing war we're in is really going to show who came prepared for the fight. So I really appreciate you taking this time. Like you said, I think I'm just going to have to make this at 0.75 speed so people can keep up, because you and I both are fast talkers, and there's a lot of topics that we covered. But I just wanted to thank you for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me on. I want to say one more thing before we go. I love what you just said about it's going to cost a lot more to get new patients in. That's why you have to keep who you have. It's just so important now that it costs nothing to market to your existing clientele, right? Just an email, a phone call, whatever. I just think that just really nails the whole thing with AI too. Is like if they're already in your world, make them feel loved and they'll stay. I think it's for patients and for your employees. And again, those things that AI can't do for you. So go be more human. At the end of the day, go be more human. Use AI for great things, but go be more human. I think it will pay off in spades long term. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's been fun. And I loved our AI discussion as well. We'll do this again at Aesthetic Next. It'll be fun.
Thank you.